2019 in hip hop was definitely one of the stranger years that we've ever had. We did lose Juice World and Nipsey Hussle this year. Rest in peace. They were both fantastic artists. It was just a strange year. 21 Savage got deported and went to the UK. Like, what? Uzi and Cardi, everyone waited for them to drop. It didn't happen. Kanye has a religious cult. There was no solo Drake album, no solo Kendrick, no solo Cole, which was the first time in many years. A lot of the bigger names that dropped this year didn't really hit the mark, and it left for like a wide open field in hip hop for the first time in what felt like ages, because every year Drake drops, monopolizes everything. But this year it was kind of wide open. There was a lot of different people, different contenders for album of the year. So today we're going to focus on the highlights of 2019, the top rap albums of the year. Now, I want to give a couple honorable mentions. Shout out Roddy Ricch for his last album. That was fire. The Game's last studio album. I love Game. But he'll be back in like 3 years. Like it's you know, it is what it is. And the last one, oh, Benny the Butcher with the Plugs I Met. That was dope. That was one of my favorite albums of the year, but kind of had to switch it up with the other ones. You'll see what I mean. Also, not an R&B video, but Snow Allegra, Daniel Caesar, Ari Lennox. I love you. First album I want to talk about is The Lost Boy. This is from YBN Cordae. This is his debut studio album, and it sounded like it. They put a lot of money behind this. You can tell with the level of production and the level of almost urgency on this album. I really, really liked it. The production and the features were fantastic. I think each one brought something to the table, especially RNP with Anderson .Paak. I want to hear a lot more of that. Cordae did a good job of stepping into his features world a little bit without deferring from himself, and still made it sound like himself. That was really evident on the song with Pusha T. I think it was called Nightmares Are Real, and the song with Meek Mill, where there's a lot of experiences he still shares, but at the same time, it's the main focal point of what the features normally rap about. From start to finish, the album does a good job of portraying a story and introducing the masses to what Cordae is really about. I don't think it's a question of who's the best in that collective, because I don't think it even comes close. Cordae is light years ahead of the other two. And the biggest thing with this album is when you drop your debut album, you want people to remember you. And I'm looking forward to the next album. So, well done, Cordae. Next up, we have Baby on Baby from DaBaby. Yes, this is from 2019. January 2019. This included Suge, probably the biggest song of the year. I remember the first time hearing this whole album and just thinking, like, why hasn't this kid popped off yet? This dude is unbelievable. And it really showed on when he could hold his own on songs with Offset on Babysitter, where his verse just overshadowed Offset's. And Offset had a good verse, surprisingly. Augers with Stunna 4 Vegas, Back End, a lot of bangers on this album. It was really the album that put DaBaby on the map. And I think that's the biggest part of why it's on this list, because the reason why everybody fell in love with DaBaby is included on this album. And I think it's better than Kirk, so I have to put this ahead of Kirk. Next up, we have What Would Sheen Gun Do? This is the first studio album by Griselda. Griselda, if you live under a rock and do not know, Benny the Butcher, Conway the Machine, Westside Gunn. Three of the most lyrical, fucking unbelievable rappers out today. This album was completely produced by Derringer and someone else I'm not remembering at the moment, but there are no samples on the album. They recorded this in 48 hours, and you listen to it and it sounds like it took them a year. Everything was just so perfect. Their bars are fantastic. Some of the best hooks, some of the best punchlines in the entire industry. There's something special about a collective when you can listen to Conway start off a track and be like, whoa, this dude is better than everyone. And then Westside hops on and you're like, oh wait, Westside might be the best. And then Benny comes on and you're like, all right, there's no debate, Benny's better. And then they just wrap it around. It's a whole cycle throughout the whole album. You just leave yourself wondering who's better. They all grew up together and they play off each other fantastically. Watch out for Griselda for the next 5-10 years, because those boys they're next. We have another collab album. This is Revenge of the Dreamers 3 by Dreamville. This one was really hyped up, and I was prepared for it to not live up to their standards, but it did. It was a fantastic album, even coming from the intro with the surprise hook by Kenny, which was one of the only times we heard him at all this year. Really showcased the depth of the Dreamville roster. And I think there's a lot of talent that goes under the radar when you have someone on your label like J. Cole. But this album, even though Cole was on most songs than anyone, it allowed JID to stand out, Boz to stand out, Kaz was a huge standout to me. Ari Lennox just went crazy on this album. And you have a song with PTSD with DeAndre Hitchcock and Omen and all these people you just didn't know who they were, but they smoked the song. I think it just shows the depth of their project, and I'd love to see that from a lot of other people. I know Travis Scott's dropping his thing at midnight tonight, even though I don't expect this to be on that list. But I'd love to see TDE do something like this. Drake's label would be cool, but only Drake matters on that label because no one else drops. It would just be really interesting, and I think this opened the door for a lot of collab albums between labels, and it's going to be hard to live up to this because this album was great. Next up, we have Bandana. This was another collab album, even though it's not really. It kind of is. But Freddie Gibbs' Madlib. Beat selection for this album was fantastic. It allowed Freddie to get the flows off and the rhyme patterns. Half Man, Half Cocaine. I don't know how that song didn't pop off, but it's still a banger. Everyone remembers it for the crazy Pusha T verse on Palmolive. And I love the opening intro track with Freddie just really going crazy and showing like, oh, okay, this is something. This is something special. This is definitely among the albums of the year. In this spot, this 4 spot, and then the 3 spot I'm about to talk about could be interchanged, and there might be a little bit of conflict, but this is just my opinion. Number 3 on this list, we have Fly God is an Awesome God by Westside Gunn. This was early 2019, and this was, I think, the Fly God at his peak. Opening up the album with Raekwon is just like you can't fail, right? Sensational Sherry comes on. That beat is banging. Him and Benny get to snapping. You come on Bautista. Woo! That was, I think, one of my favorite beats of the whole year. I remember when that song used to come on, my radio was on full blast because the bass on that is crazy. But then you go to songs, you got Luncheon and you got Birkin, where it's slowed down, tells a story. And it's a side of Westside that is, I think, really underappreciated because a lot of people like him for his voice and his flair, but his storytelling is very, very underrated. And then, of course, you mix in songs like Pete's Sake, which Westside is not on, but you got Conway and Benny who are just snapping on that beat. And I wish Westside was on that. Oh, man. I'm mad just thinking about it, but, man, I wish Westside was on that beat. Just the whole album just wraps up perfectly. You know, I really have to say this is Westside's. Personally, I like it a little better than Supreme Blind Tub. This has got to be his best album. If you haven't listened to it, I know you haven't. But if you haven't listened to it, you need to go listen to it because it's one of the best albums of the year. And just saying, it could be interchanged with 2 and 1 too. But top 4 are really my opinion. Number 2, don't get mad at me. Okay, this was hard. But I gotta go. Young Thug was so much fun. This album was so much fun to listen to. Pardon the pun. I have to give J. Cole a lot of credit for producing this album because he made that shit sound crystal clear. And I think it was really evident on the first track just how it is with giving Thug a beat to really just talk about what's going on, because I haven't heard from Thug in a little while. I know he dropped the Slime Language album and the Beautiful Thugger Girls, but I mean, we didn't really get a lot out of that. It was just great to hear him like, okay, this is what we're here for. This is exactly what we love about Young Thug. And he snapped. I think a lot of the features were well placed, except for the Machine Gun Kelly one, because that added nothing at all. I don't think anyone said, yo, this verse is crazy. It wasn't. I think just allowing Young Thug to just get in his patterns of just rhyming and use his voices was just, it was perfect. Barter 6 are so much fun. It's close. I'm going so much fun because I thought it was fantastic. Of course, you have Hot with Gunna. You got the song with 21 Savage and Lil Duke, I think his name is. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the Young Slime family tree, but they killed it. They smoked this album. Young Thug was not nominated for Rap Album of the Year, and 21 Savage was. I didn't like that album. It had good songs. It wasn't better than So Much Fun, but I don't know. Number one, the best album of the year, we have The Big Day by Chance. No, I was playing. No, number one, best album of the year goes to Igor by Tyler, the Creator. I loved this album. I'm a big Tyler fan, so you could call me biased, but I thought the production was interesting enough to where it served a purpose in the whole scheme of the album. To the idea that Igor was falling in love, and at times he had a distorted view of love, and then every now and again it would just bring clarity. Like, I think the biggest example to me was just New Magic Wand, where he's just in an angry, rage, like, please don't leave me now, we're going crazy. And then the next track, Boy Is a Gun, and it's just clean, smooth, beautiful. It was short, kind of like a crash course, kind of like this all happened so quick, and it clouded his mind and his judgment. And then at the end of the album, just asking, are we still friends? It was interesting to me. Tyler's done a really good job of making sure none of his albums sound like anything he's ever dropped. I think if you want to compare this album, you have to throw Flower Boy and Cherry Bomb together, and then you have Igor. Sings a lot on this album, and I think if Tyler's gonna sing, you kind of gotta rock with the voice a little bit. You gotta mess with it a little bit because he doesn't like his voice when he sings. But this was definitely the album of the year for me. I don't. It's not really questionable in my mind. It could be switched around with other people, but man, he went crazy on this album, and I just appreciated the whole concept of even ending the album with like the huge like loud scream, and then also beginning it with like the radio like blare. Like it was so chaotic, but at the same time it was very smooth and melodic. It was weird, but one of my favorite albums of the year, and the best album of the year in my opinion. So let me know what you agree on, disagree on, what should have been on here, what shouldn't have been on here. Let me know in the comments below. As always, shout your boy out. I'm going to do more lists tomorrow or the next day. I should be coming out with the top 10 rappers of the 2010s. That should be interesting. And that'll be it.